will call the roll.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy C. Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Marty Van Ravensway, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Fickus, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Our invocation this morning will be delivered by Reverend Dr. Roger Grist of St. Anne's Anglican Church. After the invocation, please remain standing for our pledges. Dr. Grist, we appreciate you coming out today.
Dearest God, on behalf of a grateful community today, we ask your blessing on these, your public servants. We thank you for raising up leaders committed to the greater good. As to the past, we thank you for the foresight and wisdom of pioneer leaders who laid the foundations for this community and envisioned the success in which we now live. We thank you for the men and women of faith who have toiled not only for the progress of our prosperity, but also the quality of our character. For this day, we pray for wisdom to mediate between commissioner and petitioner. The challenges they face are enormous, their work important, their agenda full. Grant them insight as they steward our precious resources. Give them understanding and strong judgment as they must make difficult choices among competing priorities. Show our leaders how to preserve the best of the past, yet build a future for the generations to come. In the same way they stand with awe and respect on the shoulders of those who precede them, may all who follow in their footsteps in the same way honor them. We have no doubt that you have elevated these men and women to leadership for such a time as this. With respect for men and women of all faiths, I make these petitions in the name of my Lord, Jesus Christ. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Dr. Grist, thank you again for coming out today. I appreciate it very much. Before we get into the agenda announcements, I would like to, make a comment. This past week, we're all saddened by the passing of Tim Curry. Tim was real. As I listened to the invocation this morning, time and time again, I was reminded of Tim and the way he conducted his life, the way he conducted his profession, the way he came to work for Tarrant County. In his career as district attorney began in 1972 when he was elected on the promise really to clean up the corruption in the district attorney's office. In 36 years of hard work at the helm of the district attorney's office, he never wavered from his commitment to justice and fairness. He never got caught up in the politics. He just day in and day out came to work for the people of Tarrant County. He was born and raised in Fort Worth. He attended Fort Worth Elementary Schools, went to college at TCU and Baylor University Law School. He set an example, I think, for all of us who work and live in Tarrant County, and he will truly be missed as a man and for his contribution that he gave to this community. If you would, please, let's all at this time rise and have a moment of silence for Tim Curry. Amen. And please let the record show that we will close court today in memory and in honor of Tim Curry. Mr. Manius, agenda announcements.
Thank you, Your Honor. We have several announcements for the court this morning. First is in facilities management, which is item 9F, 1 and 2. Those are two action items that we are going to hold for 1 week. We'll bring those back to you next week. Also under purchasing, item 9K1. This is bid number 2009-062 We're also going to ask that that particular item be held for 1 week. Members of the court, yesterday we posted an emergency addendum to the agenda concerning the swine flu issue. As things are moving, they're very fluid in that area right now. Public Health will be making that presentation today during court. It's tentatively scheduled for at the end of our section. Public Health is down in our office. We're working on a lot of different things right now, and they're using the telephone. So as soon as they get back up here, if we pass that on our section, we'll pick it up as we get to the briefing section.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Court members, you have before you the minutes of our regular meeting of April 21st.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. We have a couple of resolutions today. The first is simply to read into the record, and it is National County Government Week. Whereas the nation's 3,068 counties provide a variety of essential public services to communities serving 300 million Americans, and whereas Tarrant County and all counties take seriously their responsibility to protect and enhance the health, welfare, and safety of its residents in sensible and cost-effective ways, and whereas many county government initiatives and programs involve the protection of valuable and vulnerable environmental resources in communities, and whereas the National Association of Counties created National County Government Week in 1991 to raise public awareness and understanding about the roles and responsibilities of the nation's counties to meet the needs of the community, and whereas NACO and Tarrant County are working together to restore the partnership between all levels of government to better serve its communities, now therefore be it resolved that we, the Commissioners Court of Tarrant County, do hereby recognize May 3rd through 9th, 2009 as National County Government Week. In witness whereof, we have heretofore set our hands and caused the seal of Tarrant County to be affixed this 28th day of April, 2009. I'll move its approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Commissioner Van Ravensway, I think you have a congratulatory resolution.
Yes, I do. It will be presented Thursday evening, so I move for its approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. You have before you the consent agenda.
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Got a public hearing today?
Yes, we do. Ms. Ward is here to address the court at this time.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We are requesting that the Commissioners Court conduct a public hearing to consider the substantial amendment to 2008 Consolidated Action Plan for the Homeless Prevention and Rapid Rehousing Program. The plan will provide financial assistance and services to either prevent individuals and families from becoming homeless or help those who are experiencing homelessness to be quickly rehoused and stabilized. Tarrant County was allocated $1,156,125,000. We have allocated, we've split it between rapid rehousing and homeless prevention, each allocating $543,379 to those activities, $11,561 to data collection, and $5,700 to administration. The purpose of today's public hearing is to receive citizen input.
What was the source of those funds, Ms. Ward?
They were allocated from HUD through the ESG grant as part of the consolidated planning process.
At this time, I will open the public hearing and ask if there's anyone here to make any comments. There appearing none, then I will close the public hearing at this time.
Your Honor, we're not asking for any action at this time. We'll bring that back to the court. We would ask, though, that we have a court order actually closing the public hearing, please.
Move approval to close the public hearing. Second.
We have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Manius.
Your Honor, members of the court, we have 3 additional items to bring to you this morning. The first one, we're requesting that the Commissioners Court approve a resolution authorizing Tarrant County to participate in a local government corporation for high-speed rail.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Your Honor, members of the court, on item 2, we're requesting that the Commissioners Court concur with actions of the Board of Managers of the Hospital District and approve the sale of real property which is owned by the district. This property is located at 1025 South Jennings, which is a structure. There's 2 other pieces. They are lots. Those are 1102 May Street and 1106 May Street. And the total amount of sale is $685,000.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. The motion passes unanimously.
Your Honor, members of the court, on item number 3, we're requesting that the Commissioners Court concur with the actions of the Board of Managers of the Hospital District and approve the purchase of 1.491 acres. This is located at 1513 East Presidio, which is close to the Presbyterian Night Shelter. The purchase amount is $185,500. This is a purchase of property from the T as it relates to, I believe, the center that JPS is going to build close to Presbyterian Night Shelter.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? This is, I believe, a great step in a direction that Commissioner Brooks has been working on for quite a while. And this is again in the homeless area. It's a hope down in that area that we'll be able to put together a clinic, a facility, and JPS is stepping forward and I think doing great work in that particular area. And hopefully it will go a long way toward helping those folks in that area and preventing what has been and what continues to be probably multiple ambulance trips to JPS's emergency room on a daily basis. So, Robert, I appreciate y'all going forward with that. Commissioner Brooks, I appreciate all the work that you've done in that particular effort.
This is actually a partnership effort between JPS, Tarrant County, the City of Fort Worth, and various nonprofit agencies located throughout the community to provide services to the homeless population that will help stabilize and build them up such that we can move them out of the shelters into permanent supportive housing. And I appreciate JPS for taking the leadership in this effort, but there need to be others to hitch up to this plow as well, and we expect that the community will do that.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. I noticed that Ms. Brewer came in the room. Lou, are you ready to make your...
We can then go to the emergency addendum, which concerns discussion and possible action concerning the swine flu issue. Ms. Brewer is here to address the court.
Man your cameras. I heard that.
Sharpen your pencil, Tony.
Good morning.
I think you're in the spotlight.
I think we have been. Good morning. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to give you an update. And I have Dr. Sandra Parker, our Medical Director, Health Authority, with me. So if you have medically oriented questions, we can certainly ask her to come up and speak as well. Well, it's been a very busy time. As you well know, I want to mention several things. While we're getting very good information from the federal level, do realize that the public health emergency is an effort to get all of the resources in place should we need them. We are not at the point of needing them yet. And the reason I want to stress that is because we want to be very clear that right now in Tarrant County, things are very fluid and that could change. But right now in Tarrant County, we're handling this case by case. We're looking at each report that we get. We are getting histories. We are looking at contacts. and we were working with those small groups of people and those that have symptoms. So I want to stress to you and to the public that we are not wanting people to go to their doctor and ask for medication if they are not symptomatic, or if they have not been identified as a close contact of a case.
There are no confirmed cases of swine flu in Tarrant County, is that correct?
Not at this moment.
And let's talk a little bit about, I mean, if someone comes in, I assume that there is a test, and then is that test sent to CDC?
We can do the first round of testing in our LRN lab, and we have been running tests since Saturday, probably before that, on this. And so we can do the first level of test. If it's negative, then that's the end. If it's positive, of course, then we would send that on to the CDC for confirmation. So at the point that it's positive or untypable, then we would send that on to the CDC for confirmation. So we cannot do the final confirmation here in our lab.
Once you send that along to CDC, what is the length of time that it normally takes for them to get back to you and let you know something?
I wish I could answer that question. We hope for 24-hour turnaround, but when we were doing the crypto outbreak last summer, we could not count on that. And I don't know how busy they are right now.
Okay.
Just for the public's information, what is the acronym LRM? What's an LRM lab?
I do know this. Let me see if I can call it. Can you help me with that, Sandy?
Laboratory Response Network.
Thank you. Laboratory Response Network. That's part
And this
of
is a regional lab that's
Yes,
part of
this
public
is
health.
this is part of the Public Health Preparedness program, and we receive separate funding from the state for this level of laboratory testing ability. If we didn't have this, we'd have to be sending it all down to Austin, and it would take probably a couple of weeks.
I think we need to clarify something. Commissioner Brooks, you had made the statement that there are no confirmed cases. You'd asked that question.
Yes.
We have had one case that was an initial positive that public health is sent to CDC.
And that was one of the questions I was going to ask. So at this point in time, you have had a positive testing that you have sent on,
We have one probable,
one probable.
and that's the case you're hearing about on the news. And we are waiting for confirmation from CDC.
And so as far as testing and how you decide what goes to this LRN, do those come from the local doctors? How exactly does this process
Right.
work?
It could come from clinics, private providers, and so hospitals. They come to us, and then we do the test and get the results back out to them. And if it bears follow-up with our epidemiology team, then they start a contact investigation.
So if I go into a doctor's office and am complaining of flu-like symptoms and they do a test, they're going to take that test and they're going to send it to you. You'll then send it to the LRN. If it's a positive at the LRN, then at that point in time, they will forward it to CDC for positive confirmation.
Yes.
And then based upon when that gets back, that would be when you would then determine or be able to say, we have had X number or no positive cases of the swine flu in this
Right.
area.
Right.
So all testing is initiated through your department, correct?
For that particular test.
Right. But it would actually be, I guess it's initiated at the doctor's office because they're the ones that are going to make the determination as to whether to send this to you.
If we receive the test, then we do the first round of testing. But
Right.
But the sample has to be taken in
At the doctor-
In the
clinical
doctor's
setting.
office? Okay.
But the doctor is not waiting for the results of the test in order to provide treatment.
It depends on how the patient presents and what their history and what their symptoms are.
Doctor, come on down. You look like you're anxiously awaiting to...
And if you will talk to them about contacts and how we
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question. I was having a side conversation.
Whatever. Go ahead.
Oh,
Hillary,
about
state.
contacts?
Yes.
Okay. If a probable case is identified, then what we do is we try to identify the close contacts of that individual, persons who have had a significant amount of time with that individual or in a close proximity to that individual, so that we can determine if they need prophylaxis. Prophylaxis is medications that are given anticipatory to developing the disease to prevent you from developing that illness. So once a probable case has been determined, we perform these investigations in order to give that medication.
But to this point, again, stressing what Mr. Manius did, we have only one probable case that we have come across in Tarrant County at this point.
Yes, sir. One probable case.
Okay.
But we are testing it. We are completing testing as we speak, and so that information may change. But at this point, we have one probable case.
Approximately how many cases are being sent to you on a daily basis for testing?
The weekend was a little bit different, so yesterday was our first complete working day, and we received 20 specimens yesterday that were tested.
Okay.
And I do not-
in a normal case, let's back up and just say on a normal week or a normal Friday, I mean, during flu season, how many would you normally be receiving?
I would estimate 7 to 10.
Okay.
I could be mistaken with that. I don't have, I'm not certain of that because we're nearing the end of the flu season, so we were nearing the end of the annual flu season, so the number of specimens that we had been receiving had been trailing off prior to recent events.
But of the 20 you received yesterday, only one was forwarded on to the CDC?
No, sir, that specimen was received earlier. We received 20 specimens that were testing, and we do not have those results available yet. The specimen that was forwarded to the CDC was actually received on late Friday evening. It was as a part of a routine surveillance. For that, not specifically they did not specifically go to a clinic indicating that they were afraid of this exposure. It was run on Saturday, and that's when we determined that it was an influenza A unsubtypable, which meant it needed to be forwarded to the CDC for confirmation.
The 20 that you received, for example, yesterday, how long will it take you to make the determination as to whether within that 20 there are any probable cases?
We should have that information shortly this morning.
Okay. Court members, any other questions at this time?
Lou, did you have any?
If I could add a few things. Again, I can't emphasize how fast things are changing. You're hearing numbers on TV. I cannot confirm all of those numbers. So we're going by the numbers that we see on the CDC website, but you're hearing about other cases at various stages of investigation and confirmation, both within this state and across the nation, and now we're seeing it in other parts of the world as well. Yesterday, the name of this virus was deemed the North American flu. That is the swine flu that we're talking about, but you may hear it called the North American flu, and that's what they're talking about. Late yesterday afternoon, CDC changed their travel advisory, and the alert now is they are asking us to avoid any non-essential travel to Mexico. So again, avoiding non-essential travel to Mexico. And that was late yesterday.
Well, there's quite a bit of concern in the community over this potential pandemic. What would you have the public to do?
Thank you. Very, very good question. You know, anytime you're in a situation like this, there's a balancing that has to happen. You want to inform people, you want to keep people aware, and you want to heighten everybody's alert to the situation, and you want to get your resources in place. And so that requires a lot of effort on the media. and the emergency proclamation helps to get the resources in place. In doing that, you know you're going to have a certain amount of anxiety along with that. And so all of us have to work on balancing that. But right now, what we're telling the general public, asymptomatic general public, is just be aware and use your common sense about health and hygiene and illness. If you're sick, stay home. If you're around anybody who's sick, try to stay away from them. Use, good personal hygiene etiquette in terms of coughing and covering the cough. Washing your hands frequently. You hear that from us all the time, but that really is the basic prevention strategy. So washing your hands frequently. Employees, if you're sick, stay home until you're better. School children, teachers, if you're sick, stay home until you feel better. And again, avoiding those that are obviously sick that have somehow managed to stay out in the public.
I had hoped to hear you say, number one, do not panic.
Well, absolutely. Absolutely.
Lou, what's the status of vaccines and immunizations and things like that? Concerning
Status of
vaccines,
Okay.
immunizations.
All right. There is currently no vaccine for this North American swine flu. Those of us that had our flu shots this year, so far the CDC is saying they're not really seeing an immunity to this new strain if you've had that flu shot. So going and getting your flu shot, we're almost at the end of the season, so if you're trying to get it to prevent getting this one, that's probably not a recommendation. In terms of the medications you've been hearing about in the media and from our information that's been going out, there are some antibiotics, some antivirals that do seem to be working with this strain of flu. So we do have those medications available. But again, we're at the point of doing case by case. We're not trying to do lots of people ahead of time. We're trying to treat people who are symptomatic or close contacts. We don't need people going to their doctor asking for a course of this medication if they're not sick.
Right. Is these particular medications that are working from a supply standpoint, do you have any comment or idea on where we might be if this escalates?
Well, that's the reason for Governor Perry requesting the Strategic National Stockpile, and that's part of being ready. And that goes back to the don't panic,
But be ready.
But be ready,
Right.
and that's what we're trying to do.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions at this time?
Thank you very much, Lou. We
right.
appreciate it. Appreciate you coming and updating the court, and I'm sure we'll
Thank you.
have you on the agenda next week as well.
That'll
Lou,
be
can you
fine.
tell us, what is the incubation period for if one is exposed?
Well, we're finding that you can. We're seeing people getting it, across the country here very quickly. So I think it's like 24 to 48 hours that people can actually become symptomatic, and up to about 14 days.
So again, as I understand the way this incubation period works, if someone, for any, let's say flu, this one may be included, if I've got someone in my household who is sick, in all likelihood, if I'm going to be contagious to someone else, it's going to be while I'm still feeling good. So if someone else in my home has had the flu or has just come over the flu, the best thing in the world would be for me to stay at home for a couple of days to make sure that,
The best thing would be to wash your hands.
okay,
Don't panic, and try to avoid contact with that person and just kind of let them have their own quiet place and get better. And
But you're not saying keep your children home from school at this point in time?
no, unless they're sick.
Right.
Unless they're sick.
Unless they're sick.
Mr. Flake, do you have a comment yet?
So at this time, we're putting together a webpage that people can go to and get information about the current issue. We already have a lot of information on the public health web pages on planning for pandemics, and I think you don't want to panic, but you do want to plan. There's information what businesses can do, what schools can do, what individuals can do, just to make sure that they're ready for it should it happen. We're going to have all of our news releases on there, and we'll have links to national CDC and other places where they can get information on this issue.
Will this be a link off of tarrantcounty.com?
It'll be on the front page, and it'll be at the top right underneath the banner. I was planning on doing swine flu influenza information. We might have it called North American influenza information. It's going to be one of those two or a combination.
I probably would make it North America, or in parentheses, someplace in there put swine flu, because that's what everybody has been thinking.
We'll do that.
But that's off of tarrantcounty.com.
tarrantcounty.com. And we should have it up later today. I was trying to get it done by 10 o'clock, but it's going to be a little bit late.
If I can just add one other thing. So far in this country, we have not seen people getting really sick with this. There have only been a few hospitalizations. What we're looking at is our neighbors to the south in Mexico, and they've really, really had a severe bout with this, and we don't know why yet. But that makes us take even more precautions because we've seen what's happened in another country, and we don't want that to happen here. But so far, we have not seen the severity in the cases here.
Do they have access to the same antivirals that you say have been effective in treating this?
I believe they do now. I don't know what the situation was before this occurred.
Thank you very much, Lou. Appreciate it. Let's go ahead and make sure we put that on next week's agenda also, and we'll get an update at that point in time.
Your Honor, that's all we have on our section. I think the auditor has.
Ms. Tidwell?
This morning, we're asking that the Commissioners Court receive and file the Tarrant County financial statements for the 6 months ended March 31st, 2009.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote.
Thank you.
Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Phillips, your items we're not doing today, is that correct? Okay. Ms. Glenn?
Move to receive and file personnel agenda.
Second. We have a motion and a second to receive and file personnel agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. We have one additional item for the court this morning. We asked the court to approve a waiver of terminal benefits for the sheriff's office. This request involves a detention officer. This is a unique position in that it is located in their operations area. This position bears the responsibility of scheduling transportation and extradition of county inmates. The fiscal impact of this request is approximately $3,900, and that impact will be to the general fund.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
I'm going to make this. Is there anyone else in public health who wants to take care of their item, or Mr. Manius, do you want to? I got a feeling that
I think we've lost Ms. Brewer.
Okay, I'll be more than happy to do that. Your Honor, members of the court, under public health, we're requesting that the Commissioners Court approve a professional services contract with True Balance for ozone awareness and reduction consultation services for the health department.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Oh, we had somebody.
I was involved in the other track, I'm sorry. Thank you for that.
Do you think we can just simply bring him up here and embarrass him a little bit?
No, I think we've already done that. Yeah, we've already successfully done that. He's just glad all 6 cameras aren't still here. Mr. Beecham, come on down.
Good morning.
Morning.
With the delay of our one item, Your Honor, and other members of the court, we have 4 items for your consideration now this morning. If we can start with our second item, which is a bid award recommendation for bid number 2009-069, signing a contract for the purchase of box van trucks. The recommendation would be to award to Graf Chevrolet on a per unit price basis, including the optional price list. The bids that we received from Industrial Power Truck and Equipment and Rush Truck Center should be rejected for not meeting our specifications.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we give any consideration, or are these any kind of a hybrid vehicle?
Not available in this particular vehicle.
Are they diesel?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's going to start being a regular question.
Yes,
so,
sir.
and if it is available and it's not a pursuit vehicle, then I'm going to very sincerely hope that we give very serious consideration to going to some sort of a hybrid vehicle.
We do have a contract, just as a point of remembrance, for every hybrid vehicle known to mankind. That's an existing contract already in place in case we have a need like that. This is a special truck.
Well, I understand, and I know we have the contract in place. I just don't. I rarely see vehicles coming across that are using that contract.
Yes, sir.
And I hope we start doing that a lot more often. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our third item is a bid award recommendation for RFO number 2009-085. This is a request for offer, the purchase of surveillance camera system installation for the Plaza Parking Garage. Recommendation would be toward the Siemens Building Technologies Incorporated, amount of $23,346.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Number 4 is also a bid award recommendation for RFO number 2009-088. This is an annual contract for paint, caulk, stains, and other supplies. Recommendation would be toward the Shore and Williams Company on a per unit price basis.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And our last item, number 5, is also a bid award recommendation for RFO number 2009-089. It's our annual contract for a cleaner deodorizer for the Sheriff's Department. Recommendation would be toward the Bob Barker Company on a per unit price basis.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Ms. Lamb? Whoop. Mr. Skinner?
Good morning, members of the court. We will be seeking your approval of 12 interlocal agreements, all for projects located within the city of Arlington. These projects are included in the 2006 Transportation Bond Program.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful.
Move for approval of
Second.
all 12 items.
We have a motion and a second to approve items 9N 1 through 12.
Yeah. Could I name the streets for the record, or
Certainly.
do you want to do that, Mr. Skinner?
I will do that. The projects include Green Oaks Boulevard, Abrams Street, Bowman Springs Road.
On Bowman Springs Road, have we finally got the alignment figured out with the state?
That design is still, I believe that design is still in the process right now, but recently it approved the agreement for the second bridge, so that'll all come together. Lamar Boulevard is another project that's included in this. Intersection of Mansfield Webb and Silo Road. Widening at Stadium Drive. The intersection of North Collins and Road to Six Flags will be improved. The intersection of South Cooper and Mayfield Road. The intersection of South Cooper and Green Oaks Boulevard. The intersection of Mayfield Road and Matlock Road. The widening of Matlock Road and the intersection improvement at North Collins and Green Oaks Boulevard.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Any appointments? You have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move approval of claims, including the addendum.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Judge, let me back up just a minute.
Sure.
Why do we keep showing constables, precinct 1 through 8?
Well, I was just going to ask, I thought I saw Ian Diamond in the room. Usually we have constables. There may still be some that have not been bonded yet.
Well, it's not the constables, but the deputies.
Reserves?
And some of them, we keep thinking we're going to have some on. We took it off, and then we heard that we had some, but they weren't signed. So Friday, we thought we had some, so we put it on, and then they aren't signed. So.
Well, I wondered that same thing. I saw Ann running around earlier, and so I thought, well, maybe we have some today, but we don't. So
It's been on there since the budget started this
Yeah.
year, so.
From constables to their deputies.
So let me ask this question. If we got them running around that are not bonded, should we go ahead and take their guns and put them someplace? And that would therefore probably speed up the process of...
Probably a good idea.
It does kind of concern me that we've got them out there and they're not bonded.
Especially now that we know it.
Let us, before we take their guns, let us make a concerted effort one more week to get these bonds in.
Okay, then you're going to be designated to take their guns.
Commissioner Johnson, you may need to come with me on that one, if you don't mind. So.
Just bring that white truck.
Are we ready to move forward, Your Honor?
You're in a hurry to leave this subject?
Yes, we are.
Did we vote on the claims and the addendum? But I guess we can move forward.
Members of the court, we have several items to bring to you on briefing this morning. The first one concerns the Tarrant Appraisal District Board of Directors vacancy. I believe that each of you had received a letter several weeks ago concerning the vacancy that has now occurred on the TAD board simply because of the passing of Mr. Harold Patterson. The statute requires that we submit nominations as we do in normal process, and we need to have those nominations in by May 11th, which will mean that we'll need to pass an order next week if we're going to nominate anyone. So what I ask that you do, if you have someone that you would like to nominate, I will go ahead. If you'll give that name to me, I will put that in an order and present it to the court for approval to submission to the TAD board. Once they have the nominees, then they will send out ballots to all the entities that participate in the election of the board, and then we'll have an opportunity to vote on the nominees at that time. I'm more than happy to answer any questions this court might have.
Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Muniz.
Your Honor, we're going to, on item B, we're going to go into a briefing mode, and if you don't mind, since there's a number of individuals who participated in that, I'm going to take the keyboard. We have a slide presentation for you, and start the presentation, and I believe that we have provided the Commissioners Court with a PowerPoint presentation. We hope to get, I believe we got it to you all yesterday afternoon. It is in your court book, and we will use that as a basis for this presentation. You give us just a second to set up.
I'm not sure it's in our...
Yes, it is.
Is it?
I got it.
We put it in the book this morning,
Maybe
the electric book this morning. If not, you'll see this PowerPoint on your screen also. Your Honor, we might then, before we get into this, if I could make just a few comments. We've been looking at the economic situation that is in the United States and Texas and the North Texas area, and have been closely following that situation as it relates to the impact that it may have on the county. And we assembled a working group consisting of the budget director, the auditor, the first assistant auditor, the tax assessor collector, and our office to look at what impact, if any, this might have on our current budget and also on our budget for next year and budget for FY11. What we'd like to do today is to simply begin discussions as it relates to the county's revenues and expenditures in the current form, and then some projections that we might have on a go-forward basis. I'm going to do a lot of the PowerPoint, but my presentation on this is going to be at a very high level. I know that you probably have questions as it relates to the various different pieces, and I'm going to, when we get to those questions, I'm going to ask Budget, Audit, and Tax if they will answer those questions for the court. Over the past 12 months, the United States economy has continued to decline, and really there's no assurance that it has bottomed out. We, in the Texas area, the impact on the Texas economy has not been as great as the U.S. economy. Our economy is still fairly strong, but we are seeing a decline in that economy. We've talked with several economists as it relates to why Texas is strong and as it relates to other parts of the United States. And the unanimous conclusion is that it's coming to Texas. It may not hit us quite as hard, but it is going to come to Texas. When you look at the federal stimulus package that we've all been working on for the last month and a half or so, we know that we are heavily involved to implement some of those programs. If you read the business section, you'll see where that those stimulus packages and the rescue plans that the federal government has, we still don't know what type of impact it's going to have, and quite frankly, we don't know exactly when and if we are going to bottom out, and once we bottom out, how fast the recovery is going to be. Tarrant County itself has several main sources of revenue, and those sources are ad valorem, motor vehicle registration fees, and fines. As you all know, our major source of revenue is the ad valorem tax, which is driven by property values. Our combined revenues for FY09, which is tax year 2008, we currently project that the deficit in the current year is about $2.2 million. This is the tax collections that we've seen so far. Once again, I'll point out, when we look at tax year versus fiscal year, our fiscal year is one digit greater. So tax year 07 is for fiscal year 08. Tax year 08 is for fiscal year 09. You'll see that our tax collections are up just a little bit compared to where we were last year. I believe that this is a March 31st calculation. But they're holding fairly well. We're at 92% of current collections for 07 and 92.19, so we're pretty much even. If you look at total collections, those include the delinquencies, you'll find that our tax collections are pretty close, and that's a good sign for us, because that means that in our current fiscal year that our revenue streams are going to be fairly close to what we expected. And so there's not any type of emergency measures that we might have to take right now in this current year. You might remember that there are other counties and cities that are having major holes in their revenue streams this current year. And ours, as far as tax collections, have held pretty well.
Excuse me, Mr. Manius, you used the word deficit and $2 million. What were you referring to?
Referring to that slide right there. And I can go over that, but let's ask the auditor's office there, the revenue group. They can talk about where the deficits are as far as what we had anticipated.
You're not talking about a deficit in our fiscal year budget.
You're simply talking about a reduction in what we had previously estimated in revenue.
Yes, it's a question of
shortfall,
revenues.
not necessarily deficit.
Right. Deficit is a dirty word.
Okay, I'll choose a different word. If you'd like to go over this, the auditor's office might want to do this.
Mr. Bertel would be happy to answer any detailed questions that you have. From my standpoint, I would just comment that
There's not really anything there that is a surprise to me. As Mr. Maney has pointed out, taxes are the bulk of our source of income, so it's good that those are remaining stable for the rest of '09. It's what we're projecting. Investment income is no surprise as well. We've talked about it. County clerk fees, of course, includes deed records and some other fees that you would expect to be down. The tax assessor's fees that deal with the commissions from the state related to motor vehicles, that again would be in line with what you read and understand, what you understand in the media. From the standpoint, there is no shortfall that needs to be declared. There's a shortfall projected, but there's some other items that we're looking at that will help offset these items. But this is the picture of revenue for the remainder of fiscal year '09.
Percentage-wise, do you know how much reduction that is overall?
Very, very small.
Yeah.
I mean, our budget's...
We have $351 in actual revenue. $351 million.
I hope we got a little bit more than
$351 million in actual revenue.
You're not speaking to Mike on that.
Well, since we started talking in terms of billions and trillions on a national level, millions seem somewhat insignificant anymore.
The total budgeted revenue is about $419 million for the three operating funds, including cash and all.
This is, we're looking at the general fund here.
No, this is
This is
consolidated
all
across
of
the
it.
board. What, right.
Less than half of 1%.
Okay. I think that that's important because you can still be talking about millions, but in proportion to what we're talking about, it's a very small amount.
Are we, Commissioner, did that answer your question?
It does answer my question, but I want to state that it's important that we be precise when we're talking about these numbers and when we're characterizing shortfalls and deficits.
I stand corrected. And I might say, and one of the things I probably should have said before, we're looking at this at probably a 500-foot level, and what you're seeing is a 500-foot level view of this thing. I will tell you that all of those that have participated in this have really drilled down into that, and we feel fairly confident with our numbers here. So we've studied this in great detail, and so this is simply a revenue shortfall issue.
This is a picture on the other side of the scope where we're looking at our actual comparisons to year-to-date expenditures to budget. And as you can see, we are just right on line with FY08 as far as expenditures go. Now, as we talked about the $2.2 million issue regarding revenues, be conscientious and keep in mind that every year as we approach the budget, we have two elements in there. One is our true reserves, that number that we hope that we never have to touch, and then undesignated. Undesignated is there for us to deal with unforeseen, unknown issues. A county our size is going to have those type of things that come up every year. Right now for FY08, FY09, undesignated is approximately $5 million. So if we do, in the end, have a $2.2 million issue with revenues, then that's the budget that will decrease.
And I'm making the assumption that in both years we spent probably about the same amount of money on the 31st of March.
I would say that's an accurate statement.
So the fact that we only went through 30 days didn't skew it as far as the 31st day of March?
That's correct. I mean, we accrue payroll, for instance, based on the actual number of days in the calendar month. So that's always going to be consistent.
This is through the end of March.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that works for you.
We'll take
30
questions at the
days
end
of
of
September,
April,
June, and November. All the rest have 31.
When you look at it at 500 feet, you tend to miss that last day. Okay. So. There are potential issues that we have identified as relates to the FY10 budget. And Ms. Snyder, you'd like to go over some of those?
Correct. Of course, every year we have salaries that primarily are awarded in January. Sheriff's Department, law enforcement happen throughout the year, but about half of our employees actually see their salary increases in January. When you analyze that impact for the next year, that's about $1.6 million. We're currently considering in the legislature a new felony court. That operational cost in year one will be approximately $2.3 million. Now, that is less than what you see a full-blown operation of a felony court. It will be less in year one just from the fact of the startup issues, and some of their initial cases will actually be distributed from the existing courts and new cases rotated amongst the 10 instead of 9. So it'll take a few years for it to actually get up to the level of court costs, being counsel fees, statement of facts, and so forth as the other courts.
Where are we legislatively on that?
That bill passed out last week, I believe, the creation of the criminal court did. Isn't that correct, Mr.
That's correct. We feel very comfortable that that bill is where it needs to be and that it's moving forward in a positive manner.
It was passed out of
Senate.
the Senate.
The next is issue regarding our retirement rate. Like anybody else, the retirement system has seen a change in their own reserves. And so now they're going to be, over the next few years, in the process of rebuilding those reserves. Obviously, that has no impact on the soundness of the retirement system. But our initial projection that we received from the retirement system would be an increase to 12.1% for the county's share of our participation in the retirement system. We are actually projecting, we think it'll be higher than that, so right now we're using 12.5%. So currently at 11.07. So that's an impact of over $2.5 million.
And I guess I would tell you, I thought we had heard that it might be a little bit even higher than that because of the losses that had incurred, even though they were spreading out the length that we were going to absorb that loss. I was thinking it might be more along the lines of 13 or 14.
That was the information that they gave when we attended the webinar. But then, since then, they sent out preliminary projections to each of the entities. And their preliminary projection, even though they quantified that this may not be it yet, was 12.1.
Let me ask you a couple of other questions with regards to that amount. First, is that $2.5 million, does that assume that we give the salary increases that we've given in the past, or is that based upon the current year's salaries?
It's based on our current year, and we've taken that into consideration when projecting the annualized impact of the $1.6 million.
So the 1.6 is in there, but or not? You confused me with that last statement.
The increase on the retirement rate is included in that annualized amount. The 2.5 is just on the base salaries that we have today.
Okay, thank you. And then, does any of this take into account the fact that we normally give a COLA on our retirees?
That's blended into the retirement system's projection when we receive our rate information each year.
Okay.
Right now, we're also assuming a 10% increase in our health insurance costs. Of course, at this point in the year, everything is very, very fluid regarding health insurance and our projections. We are working daily on that information. That's just a basic raw assumption on our part at this time. Termination pay. And termination pay is something that we've just seen simply an increase in over the last few years. Termination pay is when someone retires or leaves service, and we're paying them off for their accrued vacation. Well, their accrued vacation actually hits the department's budget. This is sick leave balances only.
And we pay 50% of that?
Up to. It really depends on your years of service.
We might want to use a different word than termination, because that, again, implies
it's simply it's a terminal, it's a terminal benefit.
Separation pay or something like that. Okay.
But that's just increase. That budget this year is probably close to $700,000, and we had gone through a majority of that very quickly already.
So if I'm looking over that from a standpoint of as we move into our budget area, or our budget, really the only number on there that we have any control, that we actually would have a control over would be that first number of salary increases, because the felony court, we've already got underway.
Right.
No, that's...
You don't have an impact. That amount has already been awarded to employees. We just simply paid 9 months of it this year, and we'll have to pay 12 months of it next year.
And this 1.6 million is the increase from 9 months to 12 months funding.
That's correct.
So there's not anything in there that we have any control over.
Yeah, thank you.
I do think that there's some things that we're changing our medical plan a little bit. We're dropping the HMO, and we're moving to all fully self-insured. We're hoping to see some increases. So the health insurance increase, the 3.1, that may fluctuate, but right now I don't believe staff feels comfortable changing that number at all.
No.
We just need to see how it turns out.
So so to follow up and to kind of, I guess, take what Commissioner Brooks just indicated, before we walk into the room, our budget is increased $10.2 million, over which we have no impact.
Pretty much so. Pretty much.
Okay. Continue on with the good news.
So, how do we get there, basically? This is some of the recommendations that we would like to talk to the court about and maybe get some direction. First of all, let me say that when we first started this presentation, we said that our major resource for revenue is the ad valorem tax. And while those values are moving back and forth, I think that at least at this moment we believe that those values are going to be flat, basically even, and which is a good sign, because there are many jurisdictions whose values are going down, and we're working with TAD, and we should see those first numbers on May 25th, and then we'll see another set in June, and then we'll see another set in July. So those are areas that we'll be watching and talking with the court about, because that's going to basically indicate if we're going to see additional revenues or less revenues than we currently anticipate. Right now, we're anticipating a flat or zero growth, but no reduction.
Let me say one thing. As we talk about the appraisal values, keep in mind that the appraisals follow the market. So it will probably be 2011 before we really get a true impact of the market changes in Tarrant County. So as we see those numbers, let's just keep in mind that this is just the first year.
So if we are indeed flat this year, we might anticipate a little decline in 2011, and I would assume that that a decline in new construction has occurred or will have occurred in 2010, and that probably will not have come back tremendously by the time we get to 2011.
That snapshot will be January 1, 2010 for that tax year, which is our budget year 11.
So I think, again, from our perspective, we need to look at, and I think that's what you're saying, 2010 is going to be a lean year. 2011 may be an even leaner year as we move toward that.
And as we all know, the crystal balls get very fuzzy the farther we look out. So these are some of the things that we believe are very prudent for the court to look at and give direction. First of all, the first one is to minimize current 2009 expenditures to increase our cash carry forward. Basically, if we can save any money during this current fiscal year, then that money can be used as cash carry forward to help supplement revenue in FY10. We've already talked to the court about no position reclassifications. Let me make one comment. I think I might have forgotten to tell you that HR has been intricately involved in all of these meetings also, so this is not a surprise for HR. No position reclassifications, no new positions, and those no new positions for FY10. We're looking at those that are funded either through general revenue or through transportation, because we do have the ability of gaining some positions. If if we get those from the stimulus package or if we get those through grants. But when we talk about no new positions, we're talking about general fund and transportation fund. We had a meeting of the IT steering committee last week, and the message was pretty clear. Commissioner Van Ravensway and backed by Commissioner Brooks that we are not looking at any new IT projects. We'll fund the existing projects, but no new starts. Yeah, I believe that's a correct statement, Commissioners. I think that we need to. We believe that we need to do a major review on capital. We pay our capital out of cash, and that not only is general fund but also transportation fund. So we need to look at really only buying those things that are essential. And I would ask that as you put your budgets together, that you look at your capital expenditures, because historically we have had to supplement the transportation fund with some general revenue, plus all of this money that we can save basically becomes available for you all to expend during FY10 and 11. And then I believe that as we move forward, we don't have a recommendation now, but as we move forward, when we see what the revenues are like and what the expenditures are like, that we become very sensitive as it relates to salary adjustments. And we don't have a recommendation on that right now, because that's not something that you need to have a recommendation for, but it's something that you need to be very much aware of as we move closer and closer to the passage of the budget and the amount of revenue that might be available or might not be available for salary increases. So those are the things that staff is looking at. I will tell you that this working group is something that we meet on a monthly basis. We expect to have briefings with you all on a monthly basis to keep you fully informed. Budgets are due to the budget office May 12th, and if you all are in agreement with issues such as no new positions, a major review of capital, no new IT projects, and I believe that message has already been delivered to our family, then we would like to stress and those issues to all the departments and the elected officials, so that there are not any expectations that they may have as they begin the budget process.
Well, I think that's really important, and we shared with the IT steering committee last week that the capital expenditures for the county last year were over $33 million, and that we would not be looking at even a third of that as a possibility. And I think that that's significant thought process that the departments need to adjust to.
That's not to say that we won't be continuing to work on projects that are already underway. We fully anticipate doing that. But new projects, there won't be any.
We have resources of time and money, and since we don't have any money, we have time. So what was in a 2-year time frame may be stretched to 3 or 4 or 5 year time frame. But it will get done. It just won't get done when we initially thought that it would.
And I guess one of the things I would ask IT and then maybe other folks to do is, I know we have a refresh program that goes on. I would like some thought process and some comments with regards to that. So we're looking if we can lengthen something out, and I realize that may affect a lot of things, but if we can hold off a year, if we can push. And it may, as we said earlier, it may be that it ends up being a 2-year, because I do truly believe that 2011 is going to look worse than 2010. But I also agree that with, I think the comment earlier, we really need to understand that our folks are going through some tough things, and anything we can do to help with that is something I think we need to. I do have an audience participation form with regards to this item, and I'll call on Bobby Harden Jr. at this time to come forward and make it.
While he's coming, could I comment that these proposed budget building guidelines are all prudent? In my view, there are steps that we need to take in order to get ready for the upcoming fiscal year budget, and I would recommend, if not move, that we adopt these as a strategy.
Well, and I think that that's just the beginning. We may see other things come along. There may be more stringent recommendations as we get closer to the end of the year.
So do we have a second?
Yes, I'll second that.
So as I understand what your motion is, I want to make sure I understand this. What we're saying is that we feel and support the no position reclasses, no new positions, no new IT projects, and then a major review of capital
And salary adjustment.
and salary adjustments from that standpoint.
That's it.
Discussion. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Bobby?
May I approach?
Sure.
Thank you.
You doing okay today?
I'd just like to read this into the record, if I may. Judge Whitley and Commissioners, on behalf of the Tarrant County Law Enforcement Association and TCLEA, I'd like to address the court concerning law enforcement pay issues in the 2010 budget cycle. Knowing the current economic struggles facing our nation, the state, and Tarrant County, we would like to inform the court about our desire to be good stewards with our citizens, the taxpayers' hard-earned dollars. Although Tarrant County has not been impacted as seriously by economic downturn, as an act of good faith, we have no intent to ask for more than the Hay Group might propose. We would, however, like the court to seriously consider, if not for the 2010 budget year, then the 2011 budget year, certification pay for all Tarrant County law enforcement. This is something very important to becoming comparable with other law enforcement agencies and thus remaining competitive in the regional market. It gives all officers the opportunity to advance themselves in the knowledge and training to better perform their jobs, to seek promotions, and to minimize the number of disciplinary actions. It would be an incredible morale booster for all Tarrant County law enforcement officers. The TCLEA expresses its appreciation for all the hard work you do and the many important decisions you have to make on a daily basis. Please consider this letter as our pay proposal for the 2010 budget year, and know that we look forward to many more years of developing and maintaining a good working relationship with you, the Tarrant County Commissioners Court. Cordially, Bobby Harden, Jr., President of the Tarrant County Law Enforcement Association.
Thank you, Bobby.
Thank you.
Please thank the members of your association.
You bet.
Mr. Mangus, anything else with regards to this item?
Not this item, Your Honor.
Okay.
And just one final comment, sir, I'm sorry. We're going to continue to brief the court on this so that you're fully aware of what we know. I think it's important as we go through the process of developing and passing next year's budget. Members of the court, the only other item I have is the stimulus package issue, and really we do not have any additional information to report. We are working on various projects to try to secure additional funding for the county, but we've not learned of any new items out there, and we're just simply continuing to work on those projects that we've previously identified to the court.
I would comment that I attended the Workforce Development Board yesterday, and we've talked before about the Summer Jobs Program, the fact that it's a 2-year program, the fact that we're, I think, looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of, I think, 3 to 4 million on that particular program. Their intent is to spend, the requirement that they put forward is 80% needed to be spent between now and, I believe, September the 1st. The way they're approaching it, and I think it's the proper way we're approaching it, is they're going to spend 100% this year, because to spend 80% this year and then to try to come back next summer and gear it back up for only 20% doesn't make any sense. And so they have, they got a good head start on it, and I think they're going to be in a position of being able to, the things that we stressed from the board to the staff was to be effective and efficient in everything that we spent the money on, to be very transparent, and while the word has come down is to send this money out quickly, we tried to stress to them that we were more concerned that they spend it in an effective and efficient manner than they just spent it. So, again, that's kind of where we are in that particular regard. Everything else is, they're still waiting on some clarification from the state on this, and that's, in most instances, seeming to be the biggest problem, is getting clarification from either the state or the federal government on different parts of the program. Again, I would remind you that we are going to close the court today in memory of Tim Curry. The Commissioners' Court will now recess the open session and proceed to closed session to discuss items exempted under Sections 551, .071, 072, 074, 076, and 087 of the Texas Government Code.
Signed, is this
Ready to go?
Mr. J.D. Well, I know, and that's kind of why I thought we'd go ahead and wait. Having returned from closed session, we'll now address the following items.
Your Honor, members of the court, if we can go back to the briefing item, item A, this concerns the Appraisal District Board of Directors vacancy. Previously in today's court meeting, I had said that the process would be that we would submit a nominee if we wanted to by May 11th, and then we would come back and vote on that. I was incorrect on how that process goes. We will submit, if there is a desire of the court to submit a nominee or nominees, you'll let me know. I'll prepare the order for next week. But once the nominees have been made, it is the board of directors will elect by majority vote who that replacement member is on this particular vacancy.
Really?
Yes, sir. And I just wanted to make sure that you all were aware of
The
that.
taxing entities, really, all we have is a recommendation?
That's correct.
And we cannot vote on who
That's
that might
correct.
be.
And if the letter that is in your packet today, if you look at the section 6.031, the last sentence says, the board of directors shall elect by majority vote of its members one of the nominees to fill the vacancy.
And then I guess that office will then come up at the next time we elect.
Yes.
That person will have to stand for re-election.
Absolutely.
Even though it may be an unexpired term.
Who is the one appointee that we pitch our votes to? Not this one, is it?
We've spread it out. We've spread it out the last couple of times.
That's right, I think we did.
But Harold is, I think, right now, the sole representative from the Arlington area.
Arlington School District or Arlington?
Arlington and Arlington School District, Arlington, period. So,
But I think in the past, if my recollection is correct, at least this last election, that we split our votes.
Because by the time we took our votes, we already knew how many were already committed from others.
We went through that.
It didn't make any difference.
You might recall that meeting where there was discussion on what
We
votes
had
had
two
been cast.
nominees from this court.
And it
We
didn't-
split the vote. We split our vote between those two nominees.
Well, I think it may have even been more than that, but it did not make any difference to anybody but Harold Patterson, who called
Oh, my.
at least you and I and voiced
Extreme displeasure.
displeasure at the fact that we did not cast any votes toward the Arlington representative. So I just say that to the fact that, Mr. Patterson's opinion is that we should spread our votes among the various areas of the county as opposed to in any one particular one. I tried to explain that, in that particular instance, it did not make any difference.
But it did.
He was unmoved by my explanation.
He didn't buy it from me.
He was a great gentleman.
Y'all don't let him talk to me.
He was a great gentleman.
I told him what I thought about it.
Well, you would have had just as much impact on him as we did.
I just wanted to correct that. There's no action or anything in the court. I just want to make sure that you all understood what the letter said. That's all we have.
There being no other business, we stand adjourned.
1 o'clock, 1:30.
1:30?
Here.
Here. Well, no, 1:30 outside on the curb right there by Commerce, right, Mr. Mays?